let's start. So I think we can start the lecture, yes? Okay, hello everyone, nice to see you. And first of all, I would like to thanks to Valeria and Liubov for invitation and have the possibility to spend nice time in Berlin, and also to share my perspective of view on Ukrainian culture heritage as a part of this program. And so the title of my lecture, The Shadows of Forgotten Ancestors, and I will tell you later why I choose a so strange and a little bit romantic title. And also we will have like a chronological explanation of development or let's say process of Ukrainian history, and year by year, and I will try to be fast as soon as possible because we understand that we need to talk about 123 years experience. So I will try to not make you very bored. And now a few words about myself. On the next slide, please. So my name is Lina Romanukha. I'm based in Kyiv in Ukraine, and I work more than 15 years in Ukrainian culture field. I have a culture study MA degree and work in various Ukrainian art institutions. Also have practice as a writer. And starting from March this year, I collaborated with USA funding organization Engage, and we have specifically focused on supporting Ukrainian culture heritage. And surely it's understandable why this topic started to be so important in Ukraine, because we faced physical aggression, and it's not only like building disappeared from some historical context, but they physically disappeared. And that's why like international community tried to help Ukraine, because we understand that now the main aim of interest of Ukrainian government is army. So that's why international community tried to support Ukraine in the field of preservation culture heritage, because it's understandable that we are not talking about like Ukrainian culture heritage, because it's a part of whole global European and world heritage, and that's why surely it's important, very important. And yes, on the next slide, we can see the description and like understanding why I choose so strange title. So actually, it's a title of novel of Ukrainian writer Mikhailo Kotyubinsky, and he visited once Carpathian, Ukrainian Carpathian Mountains, and was very exciting and wrote such kind of book. And here I just why I choose two covers of this novel, because I think even on this visual language you can see how during the time change the concepts of visual culture in Ukraine, because at the beginning of 20th century it's like more futuristic, let's say, like secession we can see here, and in 1929 it's more like Ukrainian like national focus, yeah. So we can see that from global desire to connect to some European context, this was reduced more to national aspects. And on the next slide you can see the photos of screening of this novel made by director Sergei Parajanov. He actually have Armenian roots, and he inspired by this novel and create film which called, according to Ukrainian film experts, one of the best film about Ukrainian culture. And why I choose also to show him here, because this person spent 2 times in the prison because of his national and dissident topics, like how he speaks about Ukrainian culture, and the like article, the reason why he go to the prison was homosexual, and actually homosexual movement in USSR also was prohibited and very often used as a reason to cancel some political dissidents. So let's move further, and here while we were talking about culture heritage, just to show you the differences that we have in the definition in different directions, depending with what department or what direction you work with culture heritage. So you focus on such definition, and I show you examples of three definitions made by UNESCO, the Council of Europe, and Ukrainian law. And here you can see the different focuses. UNESCO focuses on social significances and also shows that there is difference between tangible and intangible. Then Council of Europe put attention more on knowledge, practice and traditions. And in Ukrainian law, it's more about value, authenticity, and it's very interesting that even till now in Ukrainian legacy, there is no definition of untangible culture heritage. So we use so old law system that it's not mentioned in our law how to save untangible culture. And on the next slide you can will see that this different type of culture heritage, and tangible, intangible is like material, physical, yes, which can be movable, immovable, and even underwater. And also intangible, it's like mean that you cannot, it's have no material way. It can be like traditions, sounds, dancing. So it's specific type of knowledge, cooking, for example, which you couldn't catch in your hand, and so that's such a difference. And also very interesting that here also mentioned natural heritage, so our nature and actual environment in which we live in, it's also part of our culture heritage. And also recently there is new definition appeared, it's about digital heritage, also created like sounds, video, etc. for other generation, which also don't have like a physical form. So it's a little bit about culture heritage, and now we will start our journey, historical journey. Next slide, please. And sure, 20th century, very strange, with a lot of movements, collapses of empires, movement for women's rights and rights for other people, 2 world wars, significant jump in technological development. Telephone, telegraph, internet, electricity, space movement, great innovation in physics, quantum mechanic, nuclear weapon, etc. So we see the 20th century was really active and changeable, and surely the same happened in Ukraine culture, and it's all the time you will see during the lectures that it's like all the time fight, all the time a struggle for culture and land. And on the next slide you can see, sorry for bad quality, it's a photo of a map how Ukrainian territory looks at the beginning of 19th century. So actually it was biggest part was belonged to Russian Empire, also part was belonged to Austro-Hungary and Galicia, which were sort of separate government and authority things. And next slide, please. And if we talk about Ukrainian culture at the beginning of 19th century, so we can see that it's also developed on different 2 ways. In one way, it's desire to keep these national roots, so very naive, primitive maybe, or some very root-based practices, and on other hand it was orientation on European things. And I think it's also reflected on the map. So the part which belonged to Russian Empire surely had more focus on this national roots, and the part which belongs to closer to Austro-Hungarian Empire had more influence of these international movements of those times. But we here will speak more about this first Russian Revolution, and you will see next slides that it's like all the time some historical changes. Okay, can you back for a second, please? Yes, so like sometimes even during 1 year, like 2 total government change, 2 revolutions. So it's very like chaotic time, and on this photo it's first Russian Revolution, and it started like because people like workers, they were tired, and big taxes, a lot of works, exploitation, and then they decided to go to the king Mikhail and said him, oh dear king, maybe you don't know how poor we live, please pay attention how badly your colleagues behave to us. So in this you can see that they had some very romantic view on the government system, and they go to king with a desire to have his support. But this movement faced shoot guns, and it was very brutally collapse, and that's why it was also the beginning of this workers' movement, that they understand that actually, yes, the government not so good how they were expecting, because during Russian Empire it was very big connection between religion and government. So empire, he was ruler of a god. Yeah, so all the time for this ruler system, maybe it's still somehow that power have some connection, spiritual connection to some sacral power. So on the next slide you can see 1 year, 2 revolutions, February Revolution and October. And so during the first one, empire refused of his power, and they have one temporary government, and in October new revolution, and actually Lenin come to power. And why this historical moment very important? Because I think starting from that we had change from private sector to like communistic perception what is mean property. So when this revolution were like workers very actively start to take the property of rich people, took them to themselves, transform their houses into some hospitals, etc. And then so like private property start to be collective, and when it's collective, no one responded to it. Yes, and that's, I think, the beginning of this shift in perception, in a concept, in the mind, which showed all the time later in Ukrainian culture. So next slide, please. And First World War faced like Ukrainian people, like from nowadays Ukraine, they struggled also between different territory. And on the next slide, please, you can see all of a sudden 1917, it's a map of those time Ukraine, and it was a time of huge like wave of national movement. It was a time when people start to think, okay, we can finally have our Ukrainian country, but they also were quite romantic because they don't struggle for independence on those time, but they struggled for autonomy. But actually you can see here how big was those time map, and on the next slide please. You can see again demonstration in St. Petersburg, which bring at the end power to communists. And the next slide, please. So we saw how like this part of Ukraine started to be a part of USSR. It's the beginning of 1922, actually, where when USSR as a authority government were created. Next slide, please. And what we can say is that at the beginning of creation USSR, it was huge movement of national spirit. Ukrainian intelligence started to wrote a lot of books, published some interesting newspapers. Ukrainian language started to be in the schools and universities. Conservatories appeared in Ukraine. So it was like a huge movement of development, but this movement was very short. And when Stalin go to power in 1922-1953, this movement was brutally collapsed, and you can here see the two moments. In one way, it's like movement of creating sort of idol from Stalin, and in other you see people whom like thousands of people who were killed or moved to gulags because they have different perception of what should be USSR. And also what is interesting for me in this creation of idol, political idol, that actually Stalin was not very tall and he had problem with his hand. He had sukhota in Ukrainian we call it, so it was like damaged hand. But actually only a few portraits of him showed him with this illness, and you can see in a lot of pictures how he had his hand and how he depicted in this picture like more bigger man, like and it's also interesting how was this idol creation even in a visual style, bigger, no physical problem, strong sex symbol of those time, but actually we know the other side of his ruleness. And next slide please. It's about a little bit more positive things that at the beginning of 19th century it was development and actual creation and then development of cinematography. And here is Dziga Vertov, Jewish slash Soviet filmmaker, who maybe the most famous his work was Man with a moving camera, and this film was a part of top top culture famous pictures. But why I decided to strengthen attention on this slide? Because actually we can say that during Soviet time culture and art were used as a tool of propaganda, and that's why they so strongly support filmmaking, because it's covered a huge territory of people at the same time, and it can be used really massive propaganda tool. So next slide please. And here we can see also the members of Vaplite, and mostly of them were killed. It's a community of writers, and also like government. They try to control all part of culture. They start to bring like different union, literature union, union of art, visual art, union of musicians. So they try to make everything very, very much controlled under the government. And next slide, please. And here you can see some of these people on the previous slide. And actually you can see here a title, Shoot It, or Short Renaissance. And it's actually definition which created Poland publisher. He decided to make a book of poems of people who were killed on this time, and he found such title like Shoot Renaissance, which now very often used in Ukrainian culture and like history to describe what type of like processes, like set processes were on those time. But surely I also would like to tell that this type of killing, destroying was not dedicated only for Ukrainian artists. It's also was dedicated to artists from other republic. So generally it was a huge movement on censorship, and only people who want to support Soviet time propaganda, they survive, and others who have some different thoughts, they were killed. And also when I talk about using culture as a tool, they surely also use this young spirit to say, yeah, let's create new government, but actually a lot of them then were killed. So next slide, please. And one of the most important representative of this time and artistic field, it was director Les Kurbas, and he was shot in 1936, and in this Sandomokh area is in Russian Republic now, and you can now here see that mostly 10,000 people were killed there, and also, as I mentioned, it's 58 nationalities. So it was killness or not only Ukrainian dissidents. Next slide, please. And surely I cannot avoid slide and information about artificial famine in Ukraine, which was in 1932-1933. Because we understand, and I even still feel on myself, how this famine influence on habits in Ukrainian society. I personally afraid to throw out some small part of a food still. I put them in a fridge and wait they die, and then I throw them out, and rationality, I understand that it's like have no sense. I will not eat it. I will throw it at the end. But I couldn't because it's food. And someone can eat it, yeah. So that's why for example, my parents also, they collected bread and then give them to birds or some animals, but they cannot throw them in the garbage. So I think that it's traumatic, historical traumatic memory, which still influence so much generations. Next slide, please. And here you can see that actually destroying of culture heritage started long time ago, and also it was connected a lot of this religion and anti-religion view, because religion was opium for people, and that's why if we want to create a strong USSR government, people should be atheistic, and we need to destroy these redundant things like monastery. cathedrals, etc. And for example, this cathedral was built in the beginning of 13th century and it was completely destroyed. Next slide, please. And here I just wanted to show you a map of Ukrainian territory on those time. And you can see that actually till 1939 this part, which now we call eastern part of Ukraine, not belonged to Ukraine, and also some part belonged to Czechoslovak and Romania. And next slide, please. And so we go to Second World War. Next slide, please. Yeah, again, I think during this my topic talk, you can see that we, like Ukrainian culture, moved the circle. We like faced one things and again, again, and that's destroying of central street. Chrestiatic after Second World War, and you can see how completely destroying all things. And on the next slide, please. Okay, back, just back yet. Sometimes. Buildings were exploded even from USSR government because they left, for example, some territories and they put mines everywhere. And actually, you can see how feasible destroying was those time. And the next slide, please. It's also a very important page. Of Ukrainian culture. It's Baban Yar, huge tragedy of killing Jewish people. During September 29, 30, during these days were killed around 3,500 of Jewish people. So it's a huge amount of people, and actually no one told them that they are going to die. They just told them, please bring your stuff and come to Baban Yar in Kyiv. And there, when they saw how they asked to redress completely, to be naked. And for example, one of witnesses says that when I saw two very beautiful girls and they asked them to redress and they killed them, now only then they understand that they will kill everyone, because they think that if they killed so beautiful, talented, beautiful girls, so they will not stop not to kill everyone else. So next slide, please. And here is also footage of exploding Kyiv Pechersk Lavra temple, and a long time in newspaper, Soviet newspaper, people told that this is Nazi, bad people. Nazi, yes, destroyed this place, but actually the mines put Soviet people put mines, and German army just decided not to put themselves in danger and took it out, and the cathedral were destroyed completely. Second slide, please. And here we see again this post-war reconstruction and how people trying to rebuild all this chaos and ruins. And here is, I find a funny picture. Hello, our brothers and sisters, which backs from German occupation to motherland. Why I told that it's funny? Because actually all these people who backed from Germany, Osterbeiters, they were put in a prison and killed. Because if they were in other countries, they surely infected by other culture, other way of thinking, and that's why they were killed. And also very strange, but also thing which still influence Ukrainian culture. It's attitude to people with physical damages. After Second World War, a lot of people have problems physical, like someone had no legs, foots, etc. But in aim to create positive image of like people who win the war, these people with the physical damages were collected and sometimes bring to island in Siberia, just to bring out all these notices that actually this this fight cost a lot of lives. And that's why a lot of people who have these physical damages, they were hiding in their apartments, in their houses for long times, and they just like simply afraid to go outside. And unfortunately, still Ukrainian streets and museums and like cities itself, they're not very comfortable for people with physical illnesses, because nothing actually adopted for people with specific needs, because everyone in USSR strong and healthy. Next slide, please. And we move to Khrushchev's row, and actually it's called Throw Vidliga, but in one way, yes, it's helped to create a very interesting movement in Ukrainian culture of dissident people who struggle for Ukrainian language, culture. But it was like on a one level, but on other level, people still were sitting in prison, dying, and still a lot of people were go to prison because of this political reason. Next slide, please. And also sometimes we not realizing that actually Crimea was start to be part of Ukraine only in 1954. And it was during Khrushchev time, and one of the reasons was that there were a lack of water, and because Crimea closer to Ukraine and they have a lot of connections, Khrushchev decided to unite it with Ukrainian Republic. Next slide, please. And also for me was interesting to see this forming actually for Ukraine, and you see here like 1939 part, which we call now western part of Ukraine, then part going from Romania, part going from Czech Republic, Moldova only after Second World War, and later on the latest was the Crimea. Next slide, please. And here is like examples of positive movement that all of a sudden even advertising of films were in Ukrainian language, which was not so common, because actually in those time of this politic of colonization, Russian culture promoted as more better, stronger, and if you would like to show yourself as a more intelligent person, you should speak Russian language. And it's also was in my time when I was going to school. I'm from Rivne, it's western part of Ukraine, and when I was teenager and have these teenager meetings, we also, if we would like to show ourselves more intelligent, we should speak on Russian, because if like Ukrainian was accepted like some village language. So if you speak Ukrainian, so you from village, but if you speak Russian, oh, you're more cool. So you again can see that even during Ukraine gets this independence, this stereotype cliche was very much dipped in a very daily life. Next slide, please. And also, like when we talk about Khrushchev, we also can see that rock bands appeared. And next slide, please. And it's a very funny story. Maybe you know about about this. In 1963, Khrushchev go to avant-garde artist exhibition, and he saw the contemporary art of those time, and he was very angry. He was absolutely shocked, and he say, "Oh, my grandson can do like this. That Soviet people don't need this art, such type of art." And he told exclude from Visual Art Union all participants of this exhibition, but actually not all, only few were there because they already were excluded, and actually he prohibited. On a government level, show such type of art. And that's why social realism was much and much deeper on those time. And next slide, please. And Brezhnev stagnation. I think you understand why I choose this photo in Berlin. Yes, and actually it's also interesting because it's artificial definition, stagnation, because, and it's this definition used Gorbachev in his talk, because in other hand you can name this period like stability. Yes, people had money, they not had famine after Second World War, so it was stable, but Gorbachev used a definition as stagnation. And next slide, please. This time was a huge time of samovydav. It's like self-made books, and because a lot of books were prohibited, so people retyped I don't know, like Dog's Heart novels by Bulgakov on a type machine, make a copy, and on the kitchen during some home party, because Soviet time it's mostly home party, because if you go to some public space there is a lot of people who can hear you and looking what you're doing. That's why it was a time of kitchen philosophy, kitchen politic, and house exhibitions, and also this samovydav. People give each other very hardly this retyping things for one night, and you need to read it during one night and next day give back. But actually for such type of things you can go to prison. Yeah, it was really dangerous. And next slide, please. In one way, we talk about that it was a time of stability, but other thing is that still active young dissidents were very much anticipated in a government level. And here is Alla Gorska, talented Ukrainian artist, and she was killed in Vyshgorod, it's Kyiv region, in the house of father of her husband. And next day, this father of her husband committed suicide, and KGB published the story that this man killed her and then committed suicide. So quite a typical story, unfortunately, for those time. And here I can show you also again this circulation of story. Upstairs you can see a vitrage which Alla Gorska made in 1964 in Taras Shevchenko University, but this vitrage was destroyed next day. So she created and it was destroyed because it's there is pictured Shevchenko who hug mother, and they said no, it's not topic for Soviet culture, destroyed. And this is her mosaic made in Mariupol, and this mosaic were destroyed recently in June 2022. So we can again see how differently art things destroyed, and how we actually losing in different way culture. Yes, in one way we lost this culture a lot because of political reasons, and other hand we lose physically this culture. Next slide, please. And again, like beginning of 80, it was yeah, sort of movement of changing. And the next slide, please. We see that even in one way, when government told that, oh, we start to be more liberal, yes, sure, you can create what you want, etc. But still, people were in a prison. And for example, Vasil Stus, he was 2 times in the prison and died in 1999, actually when Gorbachev was first president of USSR, and he refused to eat, and during very short period of time just died. And actually it's the last prison of political prisoners in USSR. Next slide, please. And yeah, we slowly move to time of perestroika, shift, and it's interesting photos of those time, and fall of wall, iron wall, a lot of information come to Ukrainian culture, a lot of people faced with pop culture, etc. And next slide, please. And in 1991, actually, Ukraine got independence, and it was a huge celebration in Ukraine, and on which things faced Ukrainian culture those time. That actually during Soviet time, culture was very much controlled by government, as I told, and give financial support. And when Ukraine got independence, this support was out. Ukraine economic system, which was very much communist orientated, faced a new economy system. Yes, like okay, and then if you show next slide, please. You can see appearance of new movements in Ukrainian culture, and it's example of art squads in Kyiv, and these places used as one of artists told as internet place where you can come and share information between each other, books, films, photos. Young artists start to explore in a new type of visual language, so it was movement out from social realism and more searching of new visual languages. And also they start to visit different international residencies, and it was a big movement in Ukrainian culture there then. And I think it's also a little bit reflected that Ukrainian art, visual art, was a lot of focusing on painting, and still during long time it was still very much deeps in Ukrainian culture. And I think because of such big control of the government, for example, performative art, I think was the last developed in Ukraine. I think it's my thoughts, but I think also this government controlled influence on that the most popular type of art was visual art and monumental art, and for example performing come much later. Next slide, please. And also its time where appeared first independent galleries, and when Ukrainian those time managers decided to make business and sell art, and it's also very funny because the rules which they created by themselves, they like how they imagine what is mean capitalism influence a lot also on rules inside Ukrainian community, because on those time, if you would like to make exhibition in a government, or I'm sorry, government gallery, you should give your work for free for a gallerist, and that's why they created a huge collection of artworks. And I remember even like it's not so long time, I think maybe 10-15 years ago, when Ukrainian artists back from European galleries and say they pay me money that I show my works. So it was like, wow, we sign contract in advance, can you imagine? So it was like big surprise, but actually the roots of this understanding that I can collect work of artists because he showed in my place started from those time. And next slide, please. And this example also one of the first gallery in Ukraine, Ziga in Lviv, and as they was closer to Poland, as for me, the movement of, for example, for performative art start firstly developed from Lviv, yeah. And next slide, please. And here is also interesting. Period in Ukrainian culture, because government go out with his money and control. People get this freedom, but no financial support. How to survive, not understandable. And then international donors come to Ukraine and start to support development of Ukrainian contemporary art. And one of the such person was the Soros Foundation, and they actually provide financial and grant support for Ukrainian artists, and I think it's also influence on development of video and media art in Ukraine, because people had no possibility even to buy like expensive camera or something like this, and with the help of this donor support they get access to these technologies. And also here is an interesting photo of Marta Kuzma. She was one of the first curator of Contemporary Art Center, and she is speaking with George Soros, actually the person who provided this support. And for me it's interesting, like gesture, how they how he behaved on these photos. As for me, he's shown his power as much as possible, yeah, and she's like, ah, la la la. So I think, and actually Marta organized a meeting of, what's happened? Yeah. Actually Marta organized meeting of Soros with Ukrainian artists. Yes, short teaser of previous series. Yeah, and yes, and later on she stops to work there, but actually, and this place were closed because of censorship of the university owner, because on 2012 were show exhibition Ukrainian Body, and were some like pornography as perceived from university government, and they closed this place. Next slide, please. I decided to show this photo and this person because I think he's very important in Ukrainian history, and this is Vyacheslav Chernovil, and he was dissident, politic, and he was several times in prison, and generally he spent 17 years in prisons or in like Siberia, gulags, and And he was a second candidate to be a president during first election in Ukraine in 1991 after Kravchuk. And when people talk with him about that he's only second person, he say, it's not I lost, it's Ukrainian lost. And actually, yes, I think that if on those time he would be president, I like have these images that maybe a Ukrainian like history can be different, because Lithuania also and other countries achieved this independence in the same year as Ukraine. But we can see how, because of this political decision and willings of government, how differently can develop history. Yes, that like Lithuania already in European Union and in NATO, and Ukraine, because of this political desire to sit in the two chairs, we still faced what we faced. And yeah, in my like dreaming, I was thinking that maybe if in 1991 Chernobyl was the president, maybe we can now avoid a war. But it's my like dreams, and I just want to show that in 1991 he was accidentally died in a car crash. And it was already Ukraine get independence. And a lot of people thought that it was not accidentally, actually it was because of the beginning of second election in Ukraine, and he was a strong candidate, and that's why he was killed. And I just want to show that this enemies, let's say, they not just outside, they also was and maybe here inside Ukraine. Next slide, please. And I just want to show you that actually when we speak about losing Ukrainian culture heritage, here we can see that actually a lot of historical places were destroyed even before war started, because people don't pay attention on these places. They not belong to anyone, not to government, not local people want to take responsibility of these places. And next slide, please. And you can see how many all around Ukraine you can find these ruins of unique historical places who and like no one pay attention on them. Next slide, please. And again, it's very interesting historical places, Tarakani Fort, Riven region, and still it's an abdominant being. And next slide, Orange Revolution, again, big wave of national mood. Next slide, please. I'm started to be a little bit faster because I saw that I already 1 hour talking. And President Yushchenko, he initiated creation of famine memorial in Kyiv, and also it's example how on those time, people start to work with the question of memory. Yes, that if during USSR time people destroyed their family archives, because if you had someone with a bad reputation, like your grandmother or grandfather, it can influence on your future. You can not be accepted in university or go to normal job. That's why people start to destroy their family memory. Yes, memory about their ancestors, who they were. And as for me, this movement after this Orange Revolution was good, that people start to took this memory out and create this memory spaces, locations. And next slide, please. But we also faced interesting, again, this circle movement of history. It's the beginning of Euromaidan revolution, and it's like Lenin's fall. So people took out monuments of post-Soviet dictators, not post-Soviet dictators, and thing is that this made often in a brutal way, yes, that people react emotionally. It like in ideal world, it is expected that people will took these artifacts of past and bring them on some like museum of terror. But this like emotional connection so strong that people behave sometimes very brutal. Next slide, please. And this is the beginning, actually, of war, annexation of Crimea, and also self-proclaimed Donetsk and Lugansk republics. And next slide, please. And it's also example of how culture, contemporary already culture, was destroyed. It's installation in Foundation Izolatia, which was in Donetsk, but in 2014 Russian army came and they should leave their spaces, and here you see shoots from how they explode installation with a lipstick, because someone found this quite homosexual symbol, and maybe some other reason moved them, but they exploded this installation and transformed art space in a prison. And but why it's also interesting, and I want to pay attention on this period, because in 2014 we lost a lot of Ukraine lost a lot of cultural heritage. We lost Crimean with all this deep connection to Greece culture, Crimean Tatar culture. We lost a lot of collection of museum collections. But the most terrible things that even after that, Ukrainian government not create any instruction how to preserve art which we have. That in 2014 was no like database what kind of artifacts we have in this museum. So it was maybe drawing on some paper, and a lot of people told, like experts, that we don't know what we lost. And actually, like 2014, again, in like rational world, should give an impulse to Ukrainian, let's say, Ministry of Culture to do something, to create some instruction to preserve this culture heritage, what we still have. But unfortunately, it's not happened. And next slide, please. Happened other things. Other things happened that in 2014 finally appeared three very important institutions in Ukraine. Governmental, it's Ukrainian Culture Foundation, it's Ukrainian Institute, which belonged to Ministry of International Relations, and Ukrainian Book Institute. So finally we get some very transparent mechanism how to use government money on different projects. Next slide, please. After Maidan Revolution, we have again this movement of decommunization, and a lot of monuments were destroyed sometimes only because they were created during Soviet time. So they can have some interesting scenarios. They can have good visual composition, but they were destroyed because they were created in those tragic times. Next slide, please. And it's very first photos of full-scale invasion. It's destroying museum of Maria Primachenko, Ukrainian artist. And why I wanted to show this photo, because again, full-scale invasion started, and museums start to call to Ministry of Culture and asking what should we do with our collections. And no one answered on this, their telephone calls and emails, and people should decide it by themselves whom they need to save, their lives of their family or collections. And people sometimes, for example, as the workers of these museums, they personally took works of Maria Primachenko and bring to storage to their houses. So there was no instruction how to behave if these physical dangers come. And again, it showed that actually Ukrainian government also not put so much attention to Ukrainian culture, that actually Ukrainian culture never was in the priority of Ukrainian government. Next slide, please. And it's also example of destroying historical places, and it's example of a physical destroying. Yes, so we're talking about that bad attitude of government can support, let's say, to damages, and we also facing physical damages. Next slide, please. And this is an example how government decided to save a culture heritage after 1 month of full-scale invasion. They created bags with the sand and covered like monuments. And next slide, please. You can see how this form used by Ukrainian artist and architect Dana Kosmina during Venice Biennale of Contemporary Art. So she used this form of culture heritage preservation as a form for places to support Ukraine generally during Venice Biennale. Next slide, please. This is also again examples that dangers of Ukrainian culture comes not only outside but also inside. This is building in a very central part of Ukraine called Kvyty України. It's flowers of Ukraine. And this building started to be one day destroyed by a developer who decided to create their shop mall and office center. And activists start to protect this building. They ask ministry to give this building a status of historical building. Ministry do that, and nevertheless, it was a long fight conversation in the courts. But this situation also showed that, for example, art which were created during Soviet time, still not in the list of culture heritage of Ukraine. So still these buildings, mosaics, they are not protected and can be destroyed by developers. Next slide, please. And this is also one more example. It's Dovzhenko Center, film institution which works with promotion and preservation of Ukrainian films. And long time ago, Ukrainian government institution decided to make reconstruction, which took out the building and divided in a different developers. And all the time, like each year, we faced this petition and actions to support Dovzhenko Center. And next slide, please. It's also an interesting example how damages also intervened in contemporary art field. It's a private house of Katerina Yakovlenko. She is Ukrainian curator and art historian. Her house was completely destroyed in Irpin near Kyiv. And she made excursion on these destroyed houses. So it's also like showing very sometimes very private things, because Specifically, surely abroad, when you hear about war, it's very abstract, but here you can see that it's very, very touchable and close and personal. Next slide, please. And yeah, a few photos of recently damages culture heritage buildings. This is a center of Odessa. And it's a cathedral, and in July 23 it was damaged, and this part was belonged to UNESCO World Heritage, but you can see that no status can protect it building from damages, and that no culture status cannot protect it building for deciding to like destroy this. And next slide, please. And also very like fresh case, November 5th, Odessa National Art Museum, just before day of the 126th celebration, like universe, they got this present and big part of museum were destroyed. Next slide, please. And this is a site of Ukrainian Institute, and this project Postcolor from Ukraine. You can see and visit this site and see much more examples of this deconstruction of and destroying of Ukrainian culture places. And now a lot of people start to working with digitalization of this, like make fixation of these damages and collecting information to make it proofs on a world court on Gaga as a proof of Russian crimes against Ukrainian culture, but surely it's very hard to somehow to prove that this specific shooting was made specifically to destroy this, like for example, culture buildings or culture heritage. So now Ukrainian people think like this: if we cannot preserve physically, we can at least make some digital fixation of this building, and start to make digital copy of artifacts which we have in this museum. If we now cannot like help to this building, we can fix it and at least use it as a proof of crimes. And next slide, please. Here you can see again still this process of inside I don't know, anti-cultural behavior, and it's again you saw very fresh example of explosion, and here is example of physical transformation, renovation of building, very interesting, beautiful design, but it was too much Soviet maybe or old-fashioned, and people transform it on such things. So this is processes both sides. We have a danger not outside but inside as well. Next slide, please. And again, very fresh example. It was a huge mosaic in the Lviv stadium, and you can see how it was, and on the left side how it's looked now. Next slide, please. And again, it's example that sometimes we change symbols, but the meaning keeps the same. Yeah, we change visual things, but the meaning not changed. Next slide, please. And it's just to again remind you about this history circulation of Ukrainian culture, that new power come, new government come, and they start to change the names of streets, names of cities. They change the idols and people like heroes, but actually the tools keeps the same. Next slide, please. And for the end, just not to take too much of attention, I think I will will speak about so much about Ukraine nowadays situation. And it's example of forum which we make recently also in September 21-22, and we decided to combine, collect people from government, NGOs, activists, and international donor, that they can start this conversation how we can work to protect Ukrainian culture heritage, because actually if you will make as activist-only movement, it will not work. You need to have support from government. You need to have support from international level to have more tools to influence on local government. So, this is a case where actually all parts of activists and stakeholders, they need to combine their efforts. And next slide, please. That was okay notes from this forum, but I think we will not stop on them. So like problems of digitalization, decoccupied territories. Next slide, please. NGO programs and recovery problems, because we now see if, for example, nowadays there is no respect for like Soviet time places. We understand that sometimes maybe this reconstruction can bring more even dangerous to culture heritage buildings than let's say time and time. Yeah, next slide, please. Few links just to explore if you would like. It's like what kind of government platforms exist where they fixed war crimes against culture heritage. And also I made research about Ukrainian culture sector analysis. If you're interested, it exists in English, in Ukrainian. And it's also if you work with culture heritage in Ukraine or abroad, and you would like to have financial support, our organization provide now grant support for such institution. So please, very welcome to apply, and we will be very happy to cooperate. And Q&A, yeah, next slide, please. If you have some, maybe not question, but comments, maybe something surprised you or you not disagree, and you say that I make some not right conclusions or told some untruthful information, it's your time to tell about this.
I will make one comment. Is it working? I don't know. Yeah, yeah. So we are collecting donations for Odessa Art Museum that Lina was showing, that was destroyed several days ago. So yeah, for drinks. That's my comment. But maybe someone else has a question.
Okay, so then we can thank you. And next slide, just my contacts, please. Yes, it's photo which I make after changing the windows in my house. There was a shell with the glasses, and I found this glass full of things, building things, and just a few days after war started. And for me, it's also like this symbol about talking Ukrainian culture heritage. Yes. So okay, so let's stay in touch, and this is my contact. If you have any ideas, proposition, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now we have a